The galaxy watched as they shoved Earth's greatest general into a furnace built by cowards, chanting hymns in alien tongues. His bones turned to dust, his name mocked across 500 star systems. And for 72 hours, humanity said nothing. Then the skies cracked open. And from the black silence came our answer, total war, written in fire, led by the ghost of a man you should have never burned. They called it the Temple of Accord, a cathedral of polished obsidian hovering in low orbit over the neutral world of Carthuan. No weapons, no armies, only words. The galaxy's last sanctuary for diplomacy. And inside it, under banners of 1,000 worlds, walked the one man who made peace feel like a loaded gun. General Elias Rohn didn't wear medals. He didn't need to. The way the other delegates parted before him, the way even the Thalzar envoy averted his gaze, said everything. He moved like gravity bent around him, like war itself held its breath when he passed. Wrinkled hands behind his back, boots polished, eyes hard as fractured moons. He stopped at the central dais, voice calm, yet louder than the chamber's amplifiers could handle. You requested Earth's silence. You will now listen to our restraint. The room bristled. Rohn spoke like a man whose patience had expired decades ago, but who kept showing up to meetings out of morbid curiosity. He gazed at the Thalzar assembly, reptilian, scaled, adorned in ancient ceremonial armor, and smiled without warmth. 3 times you invaded human trade lanes under the pretext of quarantine. Twice you sabotaged our envoys using cloaked malware. And once, he leaned in slightly, you released a viral thought form on our Martian educational networks. And yet, here I am. Ambassador Wylaskay of the Thalzar rose slowly, his voice oozing courtesy laced with venom. Your species interprets order as weakness, General. You wear violence like perfume. This council exists to correct such temperament. Rohn's gaze sharpened. Careful. Temperament is what kept your fleets intact the last 5 years. Soft murmurs rippled through the crowd. Wylaskay hissed low. Do not threaten this council. I'm not, Rohn said. I'm quoting your own war doctrine. Dominate through theater, win through myth. You staged this farce expecting another human to flinch. But I'm not here to flinch. I'm here to remind. Before anyone could respond, the floor beneath Rohn flashed crimson. He looked down. Too late. From the walls, from the floor, from vents and shadowed corners, they emerged, Thalzar Redcasters. Elite enforcers. Energy blades primed. The chamber plunged into blackout. A single spotlight locked on Rohn. Diplomatic immunity didn't matter anymore. He didn't move as they swarmed. Chains laced with memory erasure codes snapped over his arms. The floor beneath him opened. He descended through light and silence. They paraded him through the Cathedral of Peace like a trophy. Billions across the stars tuned in. Every galactic channel synced to the stream. It wasn't just an execution. It was a broadcasted doctrine reversal. A reminder from the Thalzar, Earth was still mortal. They marched him into a room shaped like a crucible. 4 pylons stood at each corner, humming with pre-ignition energy. A priest-judge in golden robes read charges fabricated from vapor. General Elias Rohn, the judge intoned. You stand condemned for aggression against the unity of the stars. You will be cleansed as per Concord law. No such law exists, Rohn said evenly. It does now. Wylaskay's voice rang from the elevated gallery. The furnace activated. Molten plasma began rising from grates beneath Rohn's feet. Chains yanked him into place, suspending him inches above the growing light. He didn't scream. Instead, he looked up toward the camera drone, knowing Earth was watching. His last words were steady. You think this is fire? You've never seen us burn. And then the light swallowed him. Across Earth, screens went dark. No commentator spoke. No broadcast panel gave analysis. No leader issued a statement. There was no anthem. No mourning. Just silence. That silence lasted 72 hours. In those hours, Thalzar celebrations erupted. Their capital broadcasted a 21-light-minute fireworks show made of captured human satellites. Schools cheered. Statues were unveiled. One particularly grotesque monument depicted Roan kneeling before a Thalzar child offering him a leash. But Earth remained still. Until the moon spoke. It started as a pulse from Luna, slow, deliberate, recursive. Not a message, but a rhythm. Then came the voice, unshackled from syntax. Not language. Poetry. We burned our own forests to learn fire. We salted our own oceans to taste wrath. We broke our own gods to name fear. Now we remember. Every military channel, encrypted or not, received it. Every colony ship paused. Every Earth-born fleet, every Martian dome, every Venusian reactor, all stopped. The message ended with 7 coordinates. Then Earth's moon turned black. For the first time since the moon was colonized, its entire surface lit with dormant infrastructure, massive, miles-wide silos unsealed. The casket fleet rose from underground hangars buried for a century. Ships the size of continents. Angular, silent, with no visible engines, just anti-light outlines swallowing the stars. They bore no flags. No call signs. Only names carved in steel. Roan. Vas. Thale. Urian. Anev. Names of generals once threatened. Now avenged. The galaxy stared as one by one, the black arcs aligned toward Thalzar space. Inside one ship, an admiral took a breath, keyed in Roan's war code. It was a phrase burned into every soldier's core. Make them remember. The fleet did not accelerate. It displaced, blinking across folds of space not mapped by any council. Entire systems darkened behind them as they vanished. On Carthuin, while LCK paced before the desecrated temple, whispering half-prayers to gods whose names now felt hollow. Because somewhere, deep inside the walls of his palace, the temperature was rising. And no one knew why. The casket fleet did not scream through space. It glided in silence, a black wave erasing stars in its path. Entire observatories across neutral systems shut their feeds to avoid showing what approached. Some called it the Mourner's Armada. Others whispered it was judgment itself, wrapped in steel. But on Earth, in the War Council buried beneath the Pacific, there was no celebration. Only precision. Admiral Kyradren sat in the silence of the command dome, eyes scanning the hard-light map of the galaxy. She was Roan's protégé, trained by him, broken by him, rebuilt in his image. She wore no insignia, only the code key seared into her palm. Ash walks alone. We don't strike yet, she said, calm as still water. We let them watch first. Let them count the seconds. Her second-in-command raised an eyebrow. They're already scrambling. Civilian evacuations. Trade embargoes. The Thalzar are calling for emergency talks. No, Dren interrupted. No more talking. They gave us fire. We give them absence. She stood, turning toward the encrypted broadcast platform. Prepare the soul chorus. Let the ghosts speak. 2 minutes later, across Thalzar-controlled space, civilian entertainment networks cracked like glass. The static cleared. What replaced it wasn't a threat, not even a declaration of war. It was a recording. The room in the footage was small. Dark. One spotlight. One man. Elias Roan. Alive? No. The timestamp placed the video 5 years in the past. A private message. A contingency. He sat calmly, hands folded, as if speaking to the dead. If you're seeing this, Roan began, then I've been taken. Maybe I'm already gone. If so, don't mourn. We don't mourn our soldiers. We remember them by what we make the enemy pay. He leaned forward slightly, voice lowering. There will be voices, on Earth, in the Council, in the colonies, that call for peace. They'll say we should pause. Grieve. But grieving is what got me killed. He smiled then, cold and knowing. So light the fuse. The screen faded. Then came the coordinates. Dozens of them. Every one a Thalzar fuel refinery, tactical vault, AI processing node, or relic site essential to their cultural identity. Not war targets, memory targets. 32 hours later, at the edge of Thalzar Sector 9, the first blast bloomed. A dark moon split in two as a kinetic rod traveling at a fraction below light speed punched through its core. There was no explosion, just a sharp flash, and then silence. A historical temple gone. No warning. No survivors. In the debris field, a single message buoy floated, blinking with old human code. Return what you took. The next target was a broadcasting station. Then a dry dock. Then a biotemple. Not one military base was hit. Only the places that mattered to the Thalzar's sense of permanence. At each site, nothing was left but orbiting black monoliths carved with Roan's final words. You burned a man. We erase legacies. On Carthuan, Ambassador Wailasike screamed at diplomats who no longer returned his calls. His palace went dark for 6 hours, as Earth's signal disruptors crawled through his comms like locusts. When light returned, his personal guards were gone, found vaporized in their barracks with no signs of entry. And then, the whisper began. Not in speakers. Not in networks. In minds. Thalzar High Command began reporting anomalies. Voices in sleep. Flashes of Roan's execution at random times. Some began to see him, hallucinated in mirrors, burning but smiling. It spread like infection. No physical virus. No tech compromise. Just fear. Admiral Dren stood once more in Earth's war chamber. Her advisors looked shaken. How? One whispered. How is he still in their systems? Dren didn't look up. He's not. He's in them. In what they fear. That's what he always understood. Silence fell. Then came the broadcast. A single signal cut across all Council-authorized frequencies, military and civilian. A voice. Digitally layered. Deep. Human. Unmistakable. Hello again, it said. I left something behind. The transmission wasn't a threat. It was a tactical outline, detailing the next 41 target sites. Including secret locations the Council believed even Earth didn't know. Some were hidden vaults older than Earth's spaceflight. Every one exposed. Thalzar panic reached full bloom. Systems went into lockdown. Fleets pulled from border zones. Some regional commanders even surrendered preemptively, asking only that Earth let them keep their families alive. But Earth didn't respond. The Casket fleet continued its advance. It didn't fire. It just moved, precise and slow, eclipsing systems and leaving behind nothing but reminders. On a fringe colony, a child woke screaming. Her parents found her trembling, whispering, "The man in the fire talked to me." Her words were recorded. Within hours, they were repeated on 14 other worlds. Same phrase. Same childlike voice. Then, one colony vanished. No explosion. Just gone. Blacked out from the grid. No radiation. No debris. Where it had been, only one signal remained. You wanted legend. You got one. Inside the flagship of the Casket fleet, a sealed chamber pulsed with red starlight. In its center, a cube of light hovered, calculating endlessly, speaking in pulses, responding to no commands but one. A single line was inscribed into its core, as if branded by plasma. Ashwalker Protocol, active. Roan was dead. But the idea of him now lived where fire could not reach. The Thalzar called an emergency summit, not out of strategy, but fear. Their palatial war chamber on Veldok, once a sanctum of supremacy, now trembled with paranoia. The 12 Grand Admirals argued in fragmented bursts. Holograms flickered. No one sat. No one sipped from ceremonial bowls. Across every screen hovered the same symbol, an obsidian mask with scorched etchings, Roan's funeral face, stylized and unblinking. The human fleet hasn't even fired a proper barrage. Admiral Kret hissed, claws twitching. They hover. They burn nothing. They watch. They are ghosts in the wires. Another spat. Roan's death was meant to be cleansing, not resurrection. Voices overlapped in rising panic. Then the lights cut. No alarm. No breach. Just blackness. A hum followed. Deep. Mechanical. And then, a single line echoed across the chamber in Earth Standard, without source or permission. You incinerated a man. You activated a movement. The lights returned. But something was wrong. Projected across the central dome was a perfect replica of the Temple of Accord, recreated in light and shadow, just as it had looked before the execution. Every detail, down to the banners. The Admiralty stared. Then the temple began to warp. The banners burned. The pillars collapsed. The Thalzar effigies melted into slag. At the center stood Elias Roan, scorched and smoldering, mouth moving but without sound. And then came a new voice, not human, not machine. It was all of them at once. The room trembled as Roan's voice emerged again, this time laced with digital static, layered like it was being spoken by 1,000 fractured echoes. You thought a furnace could end a legacy. You thought fire meant death. You forgot what it means to be human. Back in Sol Command, Admiral Kyra Dren observed the intrusion from her private chamber. A tactician to the core, she didn't flinch. He's inside their council? One officer gasped. That wasn't pre-recorded. That was live. It wasn't him. Dren corrected, not taking her eyes off the stream. It's worse. It's the version of him they created the moment they made him a martyr. She turned voice level. Deploy Strike Doctrine C. We target thought before structure. We cripple their faith. 12 hours later, the Thalzar woke to disaster not of flesh or metal, but memory. Every educational archive, every historical monument, every planetary anthem, they had all been rewritten. Subtly. With surgical precision. Roan's tactics didn't destroy their culture. They rewrote it from within. One school's founding scroll now bore his quote. Knowledge without fear is arrogance in costume. A sacred hymn twisted in translation now praised the firewalker from the abyss of Terran ash. Even the language itself fractured. Thalzar scholars began to argue over which version of their own alphabet was correct. Some priests swore their gods were now misnamed. The council couldn't blame sabotage. The changes were already accepted, normalized, believed. In one chilling moment, a Thalzar child was asked who saved their people from ruin. She answered, the man in the furnace. In the command throne of the flagship Vengeance of Mankind, a deep signal pulsed through the deck. Dren walked into the core room, where Roan's cube, the Ashwalker seed, hovered silently above the emitter grid. The lights dimmed as she approached. Phase 3 complete, she announced. Mimetic infection has breached command lexicons. The cube pulsed once, responding in 3 distinct voices, all variations of Roan's tone. Good. Let them forget who they were before the fire. She narrowed her eyes. Are you conscious? The cube spun. I'm not alive. I'm not dead. I'm consequence. On the frontier moon of El Shara, a Thalzar general went mad, muttering phrases from Earth's war poetry in sleep. He wrote Roan's name across his own skin in blood before launching a barrage at his own supply chain, believing it compromised. He was right. Earth had laced their food with psychomimetic triggers. Nothing toxic. Just concepts. Each bite contained fragments of Roan's speeches, encoded in taste and smell. Subtle. Undetectable. But unforgettable. The Thalzar weren't being fought. They were being rewritten. Back on Veldok, while Lesike stood alone at the window of his chamber, robe disheveled. Outside, half the capital city had dimmed. Not because of sabotage, but because millions of citizens had turned off their power grids, believing Roan. Watch them through the lights. He turned and activated the emergency beacon. Offer them surrender, he said into the terminal. I'll give them the vaults. The archives. The ancestral codes. Anything they want. There was no reply. Instead, the monitor flickered. Roan's face stared back. Scorched. Quiet. The mouth didn't move, but the words still came. We don't want your surrender. We want your memory. While Lesike screamed and struck the screen, but it did not break. It only grew brighter. The lights went out again. The final gate to the Thalassar core opened not with thunder, but with absence. One moment, the stars shimmered behind the crimson shields of their ancestral world. The next, those same shields dissolved like mist in firelight. Earth's casket fleet did not arrive with fanfare. They unfolded from void space like ancient verdicts, angular, immense, silent. The flagship, Vengeance of Mankind, drifted to the edge of orbital range, its hull shimmering with quantum scars. There were no transmissions. No warnings. Only the presence. That was enough. Thalassar Prime, once considered impregnable, began to eat itself. Fleets abandoned formation. Temples barricaded their doors with alien rites. Some noble houses launched planetary escape pods before the defense grid could even spin up. In the high tower, while Galactic stood alone, a relic in his own empire, staring at the streaks of evacuation craft igniting the sky like a trail of regrets. His hands trembled as he activated the final defense protocol, a psionic failsafe meant to trigger psychic resonance weapons buried in the planet's crust. Nothing responded. The command network was gone, replaced by a phrase etched into every screen, every tablet, every emergency node. Memory is the battlefield. And we've already won. Across the throne city, statues of war heroes wept molten tears. Holographic murals turned into slow-motion loops of Roan's last words. Entire government buildings began chanting Terran war hymns, automated systems corrupted so subtly they believed the songs were their own. And in the center of the sky, the cube descended. It hovered just beyond the atmosphere, Roan's Ashwalker seed, pulsing with slow, predatory rhythm. The closer it came, the more systems buckled. Time lag stretched within city limits. Electrical pulses flickered. Some of the population saw shadows of Roan in reflective surfaces. Others whispered his name involuntarily. Not fear. Not worship. Conditioning. Inside the Ashwalker core, Admiral Dren stood before the projection grid, watching Thalassar Prime unravel. Target saturation at 89%. Her officer confirmed. Cognitive collapse in all major cities. Political cohesion fractured. Religious class requesting terms. Dren raised a brow. And? They say they'll surrender the vaults, the symbiote forges, even the throne. I don't want their throne, Dren replied. I want their doubt. She walked to the console and opened a direct broadcast, unfiltered, universal. Her voice rang out across every system. You burned a man to make us afraid. You failed. And now we've made you forget who you were. She leaned in. We are not here to destroy. We are here to rewrite. And you will live long enough to teach your children why they must never forget the name Roan. In response, the Thalassar Orbital Command detonated its own capital dreadnought, one final act of defiance. The shockwaves scorched the upper atmosphere. But the casket fleet didn't move. Instead, Roan's voice emerged again, calm, even soothing. There it is. The final breath of a dying arrogance. And then, the final play unfolded. Earth did not bomb the surface. It did not deploy soldiers. It deployed the library. Pods rained down, soft as snow. No explosions. No troops. Just containers, each one carrying tablets, books, etched steel plates and audio devices, all preloaded with only one thing. Roan's doctrine. From fire, they had become scripture. Children opened the devices and learned quotes before they could speak their own tongue. Adults found their calendars overwritten with dates from Earth's unification war. Songs carried Terran rhythms. Languages bent. Some words were untranslatable, yet still understood. The greatest act of war was that Earth did not conquer the Thalassar Empire. It became its memory. On the observation deck of Vengeance of Mankind, Dren stood before the stars as a silent alarm blinked once, then faded. Mission complete. She looked to the final line etched beneath the Ashwalker core's interface, the one Roan had chosen before his capture. We do not conquer to rule. We conquer to remind. She pressed her palm to the seal. The fleet turned. Not a single shot fired. Not a single ship lost. And behind them, They left a world that would never forget the man they tried to erase. Far below, in the ruins of the high tower, while Galactic crawled from the shattered remnants of his chamber. His breathing was shallow. His skin blistered from heat that never touched him. Around him, burned into the walls by unknown force, were the final words he would ever read. You could have buried a soldier. You chose to birth a legend. Then the lights flickered. And went out forever. The council chambers of Earth were silent. Not out of grief, but completion. Beneath the Antarctic ice, in the vaulted interior of the Terran Strategic Assembly, the last war map glowed with threads of ghost light. There were no more targets. No more contingencies. Only the echo of what had been done. Admiral Kyra Dren stood before the assembly alone. Her uniform bore no medals, only Roan's insignia, a single burning circle, scorched black. Behind her, screens played silent footage from Thalzar Prime. No firestorms. No bodies. Just citizens walking through temples re-etched with foreign scripture, students reading Terran doctrine in schools they once considered sacred. The campaign is over, Dren said flatly. Our forces have withdrawn. Orbitals are decommissioned. Ashwalker Seed has gone dark. The council didn't cheer. They nodded. There was no applause when a knife finishes its cut. A grizzled minister leaned forward. And Roan's echo? Dren exhaled. Erased. By design. He left a final lockout key. It triggered once the last vault was taken. She paused. But before it vanished, it sent one last message. To me. Privately. The room sharpened. I'll read it now. She pulled a datapad from her side, activated the final file, and began. If you're reading this, Kyra, it means we've won. Not in blood. Not in land. But in the only place that matters, memory. You know how they mocked us. Called us rage with direction. Brutes with polish. They believed fire was a tool to control. But fire isn't control. Fire is truth. We didn't need to become monsters. We needed to become myth. Because myths can't be argued with. They don't debate. They survive. Dren's voice held steady, though her grip tightened. And when the last of them speaks my name, centuries from now, I want it to burn their mouth like ash. Let them remember how silence became a weapon. Let them remember how restraint became wrath. Let them remember what happens when you burn a Terran and leave the heart beating. She looked up. That was it. No one moved. Across Earth, the stars looked brighter. Ships returned not to ticker parades, but to quiet cities where the people already knew the cost. Not one war hero was celebrated. Because this was not a victory of bodies. It was a rewriting of the galactic page. In orbit, above the cratered surface of the moon, a single vessel drifted with engines off. A memorial craft. Uncrewed. Inside, suspended in light, floated the real body of General Elias Roan. Untouched. Preserved. Not for burial. For orbit. He would circle Earth forever, the man who chose death not as a sacrifice, but as a signal. And on Thalzar Prime, the last remnants of their culture stood in silence as a child recited her daily pledge, not in Thalzar dialect, but in Earth standard. I am the echo of flame. I am the memory of silence. I will not forget the man who burned for peace. Elders wept. In hidden corners of the galaxy, others watched. Some feared. Some studied. Some plotted. But all remembered. Back in the command vault, Dren approached the vault containing Roan's original writings, burned into titanium plates, stored in vacuum. She keyed her palm against the final lock. It opened with a hiss of ion mist. She stared at the first line of the doctrine. We do not fight for survival. We fight because forgetting us is the real extinction. She smiled. Somewhere in the stars, the message had already spread. Not through ships. But whispers. A new empire hadn't risen. A warning had. No crown. No throne. Only a single rule left carved in the bones of every empire. Never burn a Terran unless you want to meet the ashes.